Oh, why hello there. Oh my gosh. I embarrass myself all the time. Anyway. So this week, instead of practicing a specific subject, I decided I wanted to do a project more of. So, and it's taking into consideration all the things we practiced so far, and also my own experience of what little experience I have. But this video is a project video that you can choose to participate in if you wish. That is the specific challenge. This is just a fire ox, and I want what basically I'll show you what I want you to do based on what we've learned so far, and not necessarily you have to be up to just do the best you can, really, because that's what a project is. You do the best that you can on the project. So for this project, I did a fire ox, and also I would suggest go ask a friend or somebody that you can essentially make this for. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a fire ox, but that's just what the subject is for that I did. And if you want to continue with that, you can. If you have a friend, I mean, you don't need a friend. You can do this by yourself, because you'll go through the stages of developing a character for somebody. It can either be for yourself or for a friend, which I would suggest doing it for a friend if this is something you would like to do commercially, because that way you're getting a little bit of experience of what it's really like, even though it's somebody you're comfortable with. You get experience with somebody who has their own opinions that you have to cater to for your business or whatever, right? So this challenge or whatever, yeah, that's what it is. It's challenge is a fire ox. So the first step of figuring out what even is this thing going to look like is you draw some sketches. Unfortunately, I already deleted the sketches, but I sketched around, and then I didn't have a visual library yet of an ox, so I opened up, or I just grabbed a bunch of reference images, which I'll show you here. Grabbed a bunch of reference images, and I tried to kind of just mess around, because I never drew an ox really before. So I drew an ox, kind of understood the forms of it, tried to draw it with forms, so I can understand its shape and recreate it in different poses that you can see here. And then that's when I, after figuring out kind of what the basic form is of that ox animal, then I went into these other poses, taking inspiration from what other people have drawn, and also the real world. So I came up with 3 poses, and I presented them to my client, my friend. And he told me what he liked, what he didn't like. And that's when we ended. Then he said he liked this guy here at the top left, where he's just standing there. But he wanted some changes on it. And so after doing the first phase, which was creating essentially 3 poses, I went on to and made a second pose with the revisions that he wanted, like this, and adding fire, of course, because it's a fire ox. Whatever that means. Whatever that means to your artistic expression, in the sense of what would a fire ox look like to you? What do you think it would look like? Go ahead and create it. Don't necessarily copy exactly what I'm doing, but take inspiration from what I'm doing and see what other people have come up with fire ox online, and see what you can create yourself with inspiration, of course, and reference. So once we created the second layer of what pose he wanted, then we kind of went into more detail, or basically we went into more what pose he wanted. It started out with the pose, and then the more details, like the horns and other stuff. So we found the pose, what we wanted, and then we found other things, other aspects that he wanted with a couple of revisions. We moved on to the line art, which again, the line art had a few revisions, I think. The line art itself was after we did the revisions, sorry. Then we moved on to, I just did a really quick color scheme. based on what we practiced earlier up the colors, learning a little bit of color theory, and then I made a few different color schemes, and I presented these to him to see which one he liked. And he ended up liking a mix of 2 and 3 with a little bit of 4 in there. So once we came up with, or we kind of, I presented him with the color scheme. He said, I like this, I don't like that, change this, right? And then we moved on to this, which is, again, it's a mix of those 3 with like dark horns, but blue fire. Then another revision, which we ended up with the final product of this. And then I just added some shading and ended up with the actual final product. So, what this challenge is to you is to draw Fire Ox and go through the whole creative process. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of different processes you can choose, not necessarily that I even did the right one or the best process. It depends on what you're creating. But basically, you have this idea of Fire Ox, and so you'll gather some reference, because you should never draw without reference, because that's just silly. You can't expect to draw anything realistically without a reference of what it actually looks like. Create some sketches, like 3 to 5 sketches, different poses, different. I guess one thing I could have improved on in this stage of it is, instead of just doing poses, is I could have, I guess, either or. Like, once you choose a pose, then go into details and like try out a bunch of different details, which I didn't do that. I should have. I didn't think about it. Often what I see like character designers do is they'll choose one pose, get the details down first. Like, what is this character going to look like? Here's a bunch of, I guess, concept artists do. I guess I kind of skipped that step, which I just learned that I need to do that. I guess, or not just now, but I learned from doing this process that I can improve on my process. So this is a good experience to, better yourself in creating better characters. So create some character sketches, like different poses, and then you can create, like, what are their aesthetics, what kind of horns do they have. Like in this, I kind of did that in 2, I did those 2 steps kind of in one. I had 3 different aesthetics with 3 different poses, which in the future I think I'll try to do one pose first, which is like a generic pose that'll show off the character, like what concept artists do. And then once the client says, yeah, I like those details, then we'll move on to a specific pose that they want. And that's when you can go into this stage or something, if you choose to do that, of course. Then create a refined sketch, or refine more towards what they're thinking. So like, I like this pose, but I don't like that aspect, or I want that aspect in this pose, which is what happened here, is where it's an aspect of the first pose where he's just standing there, but he wanted a little more like he's getting ready to kind of charge or something. Then you'll move on to the line work, if you choose to do line work, or you can go straight to painting if that's what you want to do. I think line work's a lot easier at first when you're figuring out art, because at least it is for me, so what I've seen so far. Then you'll move on to doing color schemes, if you want to take it this far. Like, the line art already is a finished product. If you want to continue it and take it further and practice your color theory, then go ahead and just try out a bunch of different colors, see what works, what doesn't. Then create a final sketch, or a final color scheme, or revise it a couple of times if you need to. Move on to the final scheme, and then if you choose to add some kind of shading. Like, I haven't practiced a lot of, like, I just did 1-step shading basically here, because I haven't practiced it a lot, and I'm doing a project. I'm trying to do the best I can with what I have, with my current skills and ability. So that's what I'm challenging you to do, is to try your best at creating a Fire Ox, and go through the creative process. If you know what that is, like, if you don't know what it is, just try your best, create a fire ox, and try a bunch of different things. See how it looks in different angles. Look up other poses, what other oxes or what other artists have created, either specifically in for a fire ox or for other creatures. Like you could even choose something similar to an ox, like I don't know, say a cow, I guess, which is basically the same thing. But see what other artists have created. So you can see how they express themselves. So you can try to express yourself in either a similar way, or you can see that I don't like the way they express themselves that way, so I'll try to avoid that. But that is the challenge or the exercise for this week. Instead of practicing one specific topic, we're going to use what we've learned so far and try to create something. And it's, no pressure on it trying to be perfect, but do try to make it the best you can. So like, don't just draw the first thing and call it done, which is really tempting to do. Like, oh, I really like this pose. Like, for example, I really liked the first pose I drew was, whoops, if I can remember. I don't think I still have it, but the first pose I had was an okay pose, and I really liked it at the time, and then I'm like, okay, well, I should continue further and develop another pose. And then once I did that, even though I liked the first pose and thought it was good enough to bring it to the next stage, I drew another pose and discovered, oh, this pose is actually better. I like this pose better. And so do like 3 to 5 different poses or something. Like try to create more than just your initial impression, because what you're doing is you're trying to find, even if the first one is the best one, which from what I've seen, it usually never is. It's a really good warm-up, but maybe not never, but it's rare that it is the one you choose to go with. But iterate a few different poses so you can see what options you have instead of just going with the very first one, which may not be the best, most cool thing you can create, right? So, like, iterate and experiment and see what you can come up with. Don't just go with the first one. Because this is a project, you want to create the very best thing you can with your current ability. So iterate it. If you draw a hoof, it doesn't look right, erase it and try again until you're satisfied with your current ability. So don't just be satisfied with just the first thing you create. Unless you've created a bunch of things and you see all your options and you say, okay, I still like the first option, then you can choose to go through with that because you've already explored everything. It's a good exercise for you to do to really, like, not be, I guess, satisfied with just the first thing when there's something you can create that's better, I guess, if that makes sense. Anyway. That's the challenge this week. Create a fire ox. Try to create the best one you can with different iterations. Don't stress too much about if you're not that great of an artist yet. Like, I'm not that great of an artist yet, but I'm still happy with this result. It's not, it's not as good as it could be, but I think with my current ability, this is the best I can do. So this is a good challenge, I believe, of course. I mean, derp. But anyway, hope this will give you some fuel to continue your art journey. So yeah, have fun.